Okay, let's be real for a sec. Trying to navigate the world of emotional well-being, it can feel like you're lost in a maze.
Yeah.
So many voices, so much advice. Where do you even start?
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Totally. But in this deep dive, we're cutting through all that noise.
Right to the good stuff.
We're going straight to what actually works. The practical stuff. Like how you can actually use it to feel better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ditching all the jargon and complicated theories and just focusing on simple, actionable techniques.
Perfect. So you can use them right away.
Exactly.
But okay, before we jump in, can we just clarify something?
Yeah,
What exactly is emotional well-being anyway? Because it seems like everybody's got a different definition.
right. It can get confusing for sure. But here's the thing. Emotional well-being, it's all about how you generally feel, both on a day-to-day basis
Okay.
and just about your life as a whole.
So it's not just about,
Yeah.
having a good day here and there.
No, it's bigger than that. It's about navigating like the daily ups and downs, but it's also about how you view your life, Do you find it meaningful? Do you feel a sense of purpose? Are you generally satisfied? It's really about the whole picture.
So it's not necessarily about being happy all the time.
Exactly. Life is full of all sorts of emotions, and that includes like the not so fun ones too, Like sadness, anger, frustration.
Sure.
Well-being isn't about avoiding those feelings. It's more about having the skills to handle them effectively.
Okay, so it's more like building up your strength in a way,
Yeah, like with fitness.
like physical fitness.
That's a great analogy. Building up your emotional well-being, just like physical fitness, it takes consistent effort and the right tools. And just like you don't have to be like a pro athlete to be physically fit, You don't have to be a Zen master to have strong emotional well-being.
I love that. Okay, so something that's always fascinated me is how much our emotions are connected to like our physical bodies. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Like different emotions actually feel different in your body.
All the time. I think, our bodies, they're constantly giving us clues about our emotional state.
Yeah.
But we just often miss them.
It's like our emotions have their own physical language, right?
Exactly. So, for example, when you're happy, you might feel light, energetic.
Yeah.
Sadness can manifest as a heavy feeling, maybe fatigue. Anger can bring, like, tension or like a burst of energy.
It's so true. I know when I'm stressed, my shoulders get so tense they practically touch my ears.
Oh, yeah.
And I never realized how physical my stress response was until I started actually paying attention to it.
Yeah, it's so easy to kind of go through life like on autopilot and miss those signals. But once you start tuning in, it's amazing how much insight you can gain into, your own personal emotional landscape.
Yeah, it's like you're unlocking a secret code. So how do we actually use this body-emotion connection to our advantage?
Well, I think the first step is just awareness. Start paying attention to your physical sensations throughout the day. Notice how your body feels when you're experiencing different emotions. And once you become more aware of those physical cues, you can start to use them as early warning signs.
Got it. So if I notice, like, my jaw is clenched and I'm tapping my foot, that might be a sign I'm getting stressed.
Exactly. And then once you recognize those signals, you can use, those practical techniques we were talking about to manage your emotions more effectively.
Okay, so what kind of techniques?
Well, think about it this way. Our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, they're all intertwined. They constantly feed off of each other.
So, like, if I have a negative thought, it can make me feel bad, and then I might act in a way that reinforces that negative feeling. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. So this is often referred to as like the thought, feeling, behavior cycle. It's a key concept in understanding how our emotions really work. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at a party and you see a friend talking to someone else. You wave, but they don't see you. What's the first thought that pops into your head?
Probably something like, oh, they must be ignoring me.
Okay. And how would that thought make you feel?
Probably hurt, a little rejected, maybe a little anxious.
Exactly. And then, because of those feelings, how might you act?
I might avoid talking to my friend the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Maybe even leave early.
You see, it's like one thought can just trigger this whole cascade of feelings and behaviors, and this cycle can really spiral downward pretty quickly if we're not careful.
Okay, that's kind of scary. So is there a way to break the cycle?
Absolutely. The good news is we have a lot more control over our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors than we often realize. And one of the most powerful techniques for kind of interrupting this cycle is what we call the pause button technique.
The pause button, like literally hitting pause on my emotions.
Yeah, you got it. It's about creating a little space between the stimulus, that initial trigger,
Okay.
and your reaction.
Got it.
Instead of immediately reacting, you hit pause. Give yourself a moment to collect yourself before responding.
So it's like taking a deep breath before you jump into the deep end of the pool.
Exactly. You're not ignoring the situation. You're just simply giving yourself time to respond in a more mindful and intentional way.
Okay, but how do you actually press pause
Yeah.
when you're like in the heat of the moment?
Yeah.
Because my emotions can feel so overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's where practical strategies come in. So, for example, try taking a few deep breaths. You can even use what's called calming self-talk, like saying to yourself, hold on, let me think about this for a second.
Yeah, sometimes I literally just need to tell myself to chill out.
Right. And sometimes even just physically removing yourself from the situation can be helpful. Even if it's just for a few minutes, just step away, go for a walk, listen to some music, anything to kind of break the tension and allow yourself to just regain your composure.
I actually did that once when I was about to send a super angry email.
Oh, yeah.
I stepped away from my computer, took a walk, and by the time I came back, I was like, oh, this isn't even worth sending. Bullet dodged.
Yeah, see, pressing pause can be a total game changer. It gives you that crucial moment of clarity to prevent you from saying or doing something you'll regret later.
Okay, so we've pressed pause, we've calmed down a bit. Now what?
Now comes the fun part, challenging those unhelpful thoughts.
Ooh, okay.
Once we're a little bit calmer, we can start to look at our thoughts more objectively, see if they're actually true, or if they're just fueled by our emotions in the moment.
So we're putting those thoughts on trial.
Exactly. So we use what we call thought challengers. These are questions that help us assess the validity of our thoughts.
Okay, I like that. Give me an example of these thought challenges.
Okay, here are a few of my favorites. First, is this thought really true? Second, what evidence do I have to support this thought? And third, what would I tell a friend who is thinking this way?
Ooh, that last one's powerful. It's so easy to get caught up in our own heads and forget that we probably give a friend much more compassionate advice than we give ourselves.
That's so true. We tend to be way harder on ourselves than we are on others.
Yeah.
So bringing that same level of compassion to our own thoughts can make a world of difference.
Okay, let's do a little role playing. Imagine I just got passed over for a promotion at work. What are some of those unhelpful thoughts that might be swirling around in my head right now?
Oh, there's so many. I'm not good enough. I'll never get promoted. My boss hates me. All the classics.
Ouch. Yeah, those are brutal.
Yeah.
And they definitely would not help me feel any better about this situation.
Exactly. But let's apply those thought challengers first. Is it really true that you're not good enough?
Well, I wouldn't have even been considered for the promotion if I weren't qualified. So, objectively speaking, I guess I am good enough.
There you go. Now, what evidence do you have to support the thought that you'll never get promoted?
None really. I think that's just me catastrophizing, assuming the worst.
And lastly, what would you tell a friend who is feeling this way?
I'd remind them of all their accomplishments. Tell them not to give up, that there'll be other opportunities. It's just a setback, not the end of the world.
You see, by applying those thought challengers, you can start to dismantle those unhelpful thoughts and replace them with more balanced and realistic ones.
I'm starting to see how powerful this can be. It's almost like you're taking back control of your thoughts instead of letting them run wild.
Yeah, it's about becoming the CEO of your own mind.
Love that. Okay, so we've covered pressing pause and challenging thoughts. What other practical tools can we use to boost our emotional well-being?
Well, there's one that is so simple but incredibly powerful. Gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay, so I know it's important to be thankful, but how does that actually impact my emotional well-being?
Well, gratitude is more than just good manners. It's like a mental muscle that you can actually strengthen.
Okay.
It's about shifting your focus from what you lack to what you have, no matter how small.
Wait, so you're telling me that simply noticing the good things in my life can actually make me feel better?
Absolutely. Studies have shown that practicing gratitude can actually rewire your brain towards positivity.
Really?
Yeah, making you more aware of and appreciative of those positive experiences.
So it's not just feel-good fluff.
No, not at all.
There's actual science behind it.
There's tons of research backing this up.
I'm intrigued. Okay, so what's an easy way to start incorporating gratitude into my life?
One of the simplest and most effective methods is keeping a gratitude journal. Just spend a few minutes each day writing down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be anything. A sunny day, a delicious meal, a kind gesture from a stranger.
I actually tried that a few years ago. And I was so surprised by how much it shifted my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It really does make you notice all those little things that you might otherwise just take for granted.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's often those little things that add up to, the greatest joys in life.
This is great. Okay, so we've talked about recognizing those body-emotion connections, hitting the pause button before we react, challenging those negative thoughts, and cultivating gratitude. Anything else we could do to boost our well-being?
Yes. So building on the idea of gratitude, there's a lot we can learn from kind of like examining the way we talk to ourselves. That inner voice can have a huge impact.
Oh, you mean that inner critic that just loves to point out all my flaws?
That's the one. But here's the thing. We have the power to change that internal dialogue.
Right.
Just like we can challenge those unhelpful thoughts, we can also learn to cultivate more positive and supportive self-talk.
So it's like giving my inner critic a makeover.
Exactly. It's about becoming your own best friend instead of your own worst enemy.
Okay, that sounds amazing. But honestly, sometimes it's so hard to change those ingrained thought patterns,
It is.
Where do I even begin?
Well, the first step is awareness. Start paying attention to what you're saying to yourself throughout the day. Are you constantly criticizing yourself? Are you focusing on your shortcomings? Or are you speaking to yourself with kindness and encouragement?
It's like eavesdropping on my own thoughts.
Precisely. And once you become more aware of those patterns, you can start to consciously shift them.
Okay, so let's say I catch myself thinking, I'm so stupid, I messed that up again. What could I say instead?
Yeah, so instead of that, try something like, okay, I made a mistake, but everyone makes mistakes. I'm still learning, and that's okay. Or, I'm going to focus on what I can do differently next time.
So it's all about reframing those negative thoughts into something more constructive and compassionate.
Exactly. And the more you practice this, the more natural it'll become. And eventually, those positive self-talk muscles, they're going to get stronger, and that inner critic will start to quiet down.
I can feel my inner cheerleader warming up over here.
There you go. Remember, you have the power to change the conversation in your own mind.
Yeah.
And that can have a profound impact on your overall well-being.
This is all so insightful. We've covered so much already. Like that body-emotion connection, pausing before reacting, challenging those negative thoughts, cultivating gratitude, and now positive self-talk. Is there anything else we can do to kind of boost our emotional well-being?
There is. And this next one is all about connection. We humans are social creatures. We thrive on connection.
So you mean like spending time with friends and family?
Yes. But it goes beyond that. It's about cultivating deeper, more meaningful connections where you feel truly seen, heard, and valued for who you are.
So it's not just about having a ton of followers on social media.
Not at all. It's
Yeah.
about those authentic connections, where you can truly be yourself, flaws and all, and still feel loved and accepted.
Those people that you can really let your guard down with.
Exactly. And those relationships take effort to nurture. It's about making time for the people who matter most, being present in those interactions, and offering support and encouragement.
It's a two-way street though, right?
Oh, for sure.
It's about being a good friend,
Absolutely.
as well as having good friends.
It's about those reciprocal relationships where you both feel like you're giving and receiving support.
Okay, but I have to ask, what about people who are more naturally introverted? Does that mean they're doomed to have poor emotional well-being?
No, not at all. Introversion and extroversion are simply different ways of recharging our energy. Introverts may need more alone time to feel balanced, but that doesn't mean they don't crave connection.
So it's about finding that, sweet spot, where
Yeah.
you're getting enough social interaction to feel connected, but also enough solitude to feel recharged.
You got it. And it's about being mindful of your own needs and honoring them.
Yeah.
If you're feeling drained after a lot of social interaction, give yourself permission to step back and recharge.
That's a good reminder, especially in today's always-on culture, where we often feel pressured to be constantly socializing, engaging. It's so important to listen to your own inner signals and prioritize our own well-being.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance between connecting with others and connecting with yourself.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the mental and emotional aspects of well-being, but what about the physical side of things? I know exercise is often touted as a mood booster. How does that actually work?
Well, for starters, exercise releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects.
So there's a real chemical reaction happening.
Oh, yeah. But it goes beyond just that. exercise can also help reduce stress, improve sleep, and increase self-confidence,
Got it.
all of which contribute to better emotional well-being.
So it's like a multi-pronged attack on those negative feelings.
You could say that, and the best part is it doesn't have to be anything like super strenuous. Even just a brisk walk or a gentle yoga class can make a difference.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people get intimidated by the idea of exercise. Like, they think they have to join a gym or run a marathon to get the benefits. But you're saying it can be as simple as, like, incorporating more movement into my daily routine.
Absolutely. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Walk or bike to work if you can. Just dance around your living room. Whatever gets you moving and feels good.
It's about making it enjoyable, not a chore.
Exactly. And the more you enjoy it, the more likely you are to stick with it.
Speaking of things we should probably stick with, let's talk about sleep. I know I am definitely not my best self when I'm sleep deprived.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. Sleep is so crucial for both our physical and emotional health.
But it's often the first thing to go, right?
Yes.
When we're stressed or busy,
Yeah.
like, we sacrifice sleep to get more done, but then we end up feeling even worse.
It's true. Unfortunately, we often view sleep as like a luxury rather than a necessity. But the truth is, when we don't get enough sleep, our bodies and minds simply can't function at their best.
So how do we get a better night's sleep?
One of the key things is establishing like a regular sleep-wake cycle. Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time each day, even on the weekends.
Oh yeah, right?
It can help regulate your body's natural sleep rhythm.
Easier said than done.
I know, it can be challenging. But even just like small adjustments can make a difference. Creating a relaxing bedtime routine can also really help signal to your body that it's time to wind down.
Right.
You know, take a warm bath, read a book, listen to some calming music, whatever helps you de-stress and unwind.
Yeah, I've heard that screens before bed are a big no-no.
Yes. The blue light emitted from those devices can really interfere with melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep. So power down those devices at least an hour before bed if you can.
It's funny how something as simple as sleep can have such a huge impact on our well-being, yet we so often neglect it.
We do. We tend to focus on all these like really complicated self-improvement strategies, but sometimes the most effective thing we can do is just prioritize getting enough rest.
Well, I feel like this deep dive has already been so eye-opening. It really highlights how emotional well-being is like a holistic pursuit.
Yeah.
You know, it's about nurturing our minds, our bodies, and our spirits.
That's exactly right. And it's about those small, consistent actions that over time add up to big changes. We've covered some pretty powerful tools today, recognizing those body-emotion connections, hitting the pause button when needed, challenging those unhelpful thoughts, cultivating gratitude, engaging in positive self-talk, nurturing meaningful connections, moving our bodies, and prioritizing sleep.
Wow, that's quite the list. But it feels manageable somehow. Like, these are all things that I can actually start doing, like, today.
That's the point. Remember, emotional well-being, it's not about achieving some perfect state of happiness. It's about building resilience, learning to navigate life's ups and downs, and just taking care of yourself, mentally, physically, and emotionally.
This has been incredible so far. And I'm excited to kind of continue this exploration. Speaking of explorations, I'm really curious to delve deeper into the idea of, like, purpose and meaning. You know, I think that's something we all crave on some level.
Absolutely, because what's the point of all this well-being if we don't have something that lights us up, something that gives our lives direction and purpose?
That's a great question, and a perfect segue into our next chapter. So stay tuned, folks, because things are about to get really interesting.
Okay, so let's dive into this idea of purpose and meaning. It can feel kind of abstract, but I think deep down we all yearn for it, you know?
I know I do, but figuring out, like, my purpose, it feels intimidating. Like, it has to be some big, grand, life-altering mission.
Yeah, I hear that. But here's the secret. Purpose doesn't have to be this, like, huge, dramatic thing. It can be as simple as living in alignment with your values, making a positive impact, no matter how small.
So it's not about curing cancer or writing the next great American novel.
Not necessarily, you know? It could be being a loving parent, a supportive friend. It could be about expressing your creativity through art or music or volunteering in your community. It's really about finding what feels meaningful to you.
Okay, that definitely takes the pressure off a little bit. But what if you're feeling lost? Like, what if you have absolutely no clue what your purpose is?
Well, first of all, know that you're not alone. A lot of people feel this way at some point in their lives. It's okay to not have all the answers right away.
True, that's a relief. So where do I even begin?
Well, start by getting curious about yourself. A great exercise is to reflect on your values. What's truly important to you? What principles guide your life? What kind of impact do you want to have on the world? And once you have a clearer sense of your values, you can start to align your actions with them.
So I value kindness. I might look for ways to be more compassionate in my, daily interaction.
Exactly. It's really about those small, everyday choices that reflect what matters most to you.
I like that.
Yeah.
What else can help me kind of uncover my purpose?
Well, think about your strengths and passions. What are you naturally good at? What activities make you lose track of time? What do you find yourself gravitating towards? Often those can be great indicators of where your purpose might lie.
So if I'm like a natural problem solver and I love helping people, maybe my purpose involves, using those skills to make a difference in my community.
Precisely. When you're engaged in activities that align with your natural abilities and your interests, you're more likely to experience that sense of fulfillment and purpose. It's about tapping into what brings you joy and using it to kind of contribute to the world around you.
This is really making me think. So purpose isn't necessarily something you find, it's also something you create.
You hit the nail on the head. You don't have to wait for some magical epiphany to start living a more purposeful life. You can begin by, setting small goals that align with your values.
Okay.
And taking action towards them.
Some baby steps, right?
Exactly. Start small. Stay consistent. And just trust the process. As you move forward, stay open to new experiences. Listen to your intuition and be willing to kind of adjust course along the way. Life is a journey, and so is finding your purpose.
That's reassuring. It's okay to experiment and figure things out as I go. No need to have it all figured out perfectly from the start.
Absolutely. Embrace the journey and the learning that comes with it. And remember, what felt meaningful to you 5 years ago might not resonate in the same way today. That's okay. It's all part of growing and evolving.
So it's like our purpose isn't a fixed destination. It's more like an ever-evolving path.
Exactly. It's about, continually exploring, learning, and aligning your actions with your values and passions.
This has been such a helpful exploration so far. We've covered so much ground, from those practical techniques for managing our emotions to this deeper dive into purpose and meaning. I feel like we've covered all the bases.
Well, almost. There's one more piece of the puzzle I think is essential for building true emotional well-being.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This last piece is all about setting boundaries, learning to say no.
Boundaries.
Okay.
I've heard that word thrown around a lot, but honestly, I'm not sure I fully understand what it means in this context.
Well, think of boundaries as these invisible lines that you draw to protect your physical, emotional, and mental space. They're the limits that you set to define what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not.
So it's about prioritizing my own well-being and not letting people walk all over me.
Exactly. It's about recognizing your needs.
Yeah.
And communicating them clearly to others.
Okay, that makes sense. But honestly, saying no can be so hard, especially if you're a people pleaser like me.
I hear you. It's a common struggle. But setting healthy boundaries is essential for, protecting your emotional energy, preventing burnout. When you say yes to everything and everyone, you're essentially saying no to yourself and your own needs.
Wow, that's a really powerful way to put it. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So how do you start setting better boundaries?
It starts with awareness, Begin by paying attention to those situations where you feel resentful, drained, or taken advantage of. Those are often signs that a boundary has been crossed.
So when I agree to help a coworker with a project, even though I'm already swamped with my own work.
Exactly. Or, when you stay late at an event, even though you're totally exhausted and just want to go home.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here.
Yeah.
But once I identify those boundary crossing situations, what do I do?
The next step is to communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively. This might involve, saying no to requests, setting limits on your time and availability, or just simply expressing your needs and preferences.
But what if people get upset or think I'm being selfish?
It's totally natural to worry about that. But remember, setting boundaries, it's not about being selfish, it's about being self-respecting. It's about prioritizing your own well-being. So you can show up as your best self, for yourself and for others.
Right, because I can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And when you set clear boundaries, you're actually teaching people how to treat you. You're showing them that you value your time, your energy, your well-being.
So it's about setting the standard for healthy and respectful relationships.
Precisely. And it might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but with practice, setting boundaries will get easier, more natural.
I'm ready to give it a try. What are some, practical tips for setting boundaries?
One helpful tip is to just start small. Don't try to overhaul all your boundaries overnight. Choose one area where you want to set a boundary. Focus on that.
So maybe I could start by saying no to one extra commitment this week.
Exactly. And be prepared for a little pushback. People might not always be happy with your new boundaries, but that's okay. Remember, you have the right to protect your time and energy.
It's about putting myself first, for once.
You got it. It's not selfish, it's self-care. And self-care is essential for maintaining strong emotional well-being.
This is eye-opening. So we've talked about finding our purpose, setting those healthy boundaries, and all those amazing techniques for managing our emotions. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we navigate this whole emotional well-being journey?
There is one last point I'd love to touch on. It's about recognizing that this is a lifelong journey.
Okay.
It's not about reaching some perfect state of happiness and staying there forever.
So it's not a destination.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
Exactly. There will be ups and downs, challenges, setbacks. It's about learning from those experiences, adapting your strategies, and continuing to grow.
So it's about embracing the journey.
Yes.
With all its twists and turns.
Absolutely. And remember, self-compassion is key. Be kind to yourself along the way. Celebrate your successes. Learn from your mistakes. And keep moving forward, one step at a time.
This has been such an inspiring deep dive. I'm feeling so much more equipped to navigate the world of emotional well-being now.
I'm so glad to share that. Remember, you have all the tools you need to create a life filled with joy, resilience, and meaning.
Well, on that uplifting note, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible deep dive. But before we do, I want to make sure our listeners have some key takeaways to ponder as they continue their own emotional well-being journeys. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I think the most important thing to remember is that emotional well-being, it's an ongoing process, It's not like a destination.
Right.
There will be good days, there will be bad days.
Of course.
The key is to equip yourself with the tools to kind of navigate those fluctuations and build resilience over time.
That's so true. It's not about achieving this perfect state of constant happiness, right?
No, not at all.
It's about developing those inner strength
Exactly.
and strategies to handle whatever life throws your way.
Exactly. And remember, you have more control over your emotional well-being than you might think, By incorporating those practical techniques we've talked about today, tuning into your body's signals, pressing pause before reacting, challenging unhelpful thoughts, cultivating gratitude, practicing positive self-talk, nurturing meaningful connections, prioritizing movement and sleep, setting healthy boundaries, and discovering your purpose, you can really take charge of your emotional health and create a more fulfilling and joyful life.
I love how you've kind of woven all those elements together.
Yeah.
It paints such a holistic picture of what it really means to thrive emotionally. It's not about just one thing. It's about approaching well-being from all those different angles.
That's the beauty of it. It's this multifaceted journey of self-discovery and growth. And remember, it's okay to ask for support along the way, whether it's reaching out to a friend, a family member, a mental health professional. Having that support system can really make all the difference.
It's such an important reminder. We don't have to do this alone.
No.
There are resources and people out there to help us on our journey.
Absolutely. And remember, be patient with yourself. Building emotional well-being, it takes time, it takes effort. Celebrate your progress no matter how small, and just keep moving forward.
Well, this has been such a transformative deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of what emotional well-being truly means, and more importantly, how to actually cultivate it in my own life.
It's been such a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
Likewise.
Remember, the journey to emotional well-being, it's a lifelong adventure. Embrace the ups and downs, and never stop learning and growing.
Beautifully said. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of emotional well-being. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and tools to enhance your own personal journey. Until next time, keep diving deep, stay curious, and be kind to yourselves.